Hello, friends. Once again, it's Friday, so it's time for an extra special edition of Rebel News. This is Rebel News for the week of February 2nd, 2024.
Why are you gay?
Alrighty, friends. Well, we got some big stuff going on today and this week that I wanted to talk about, all kind of converging on similar topics that we frequently discuss here, so figured I'd hone in on that. But first, I'd like to bring up that for fans of the channel, or guns, or radios, or survival, or cute people in general, I started up a new Discord server. And I will be posting a link probably in the description of this video. And you can find another link on one of my shorts from earlier. But by all means, come join along and have some fun. We're building up a pretty decent group there of awesome folks. So yeah, if you've something you feel interested in, feel free to stop by. Now on to some more serious business. So probably the big story on a lot of people's minds and in the news is the United States' pending response to Iran. Now, there is a lot to discuss and unpack with that situation, but there's definitely some aspects to this whole story that are not either well known or well reported, and I figure would be very worth discussing here, considering this is all subject matter that I'm all too familiar with, and we've definitely talked about here before on this segment. So kind of the first thing here is one of the core aspects in all this is some days ago the Islamic Resistance in Iraq attacked U.S. forces in Iraq specifically, which led to the death of 3 service members. And while this is an Iraqi sort of paramilitary group, it is it's considered, by us at least, backed by Iran. They definitely have goals and philosophies that align with Iran, so it's understandable. But kind of an extension of an issue that we've brought up before. The United States attacking Iraqi paramilitary groups has been causing a lot of frustration in the area. And that's one of the core reasons why the United States is currently discussing leaving with the coalition. So it's kind of interesting that stuff we sort of brought up in the past is sort of all coming to head right now. So, and an interesting sort of caveat, or I should say an addition to all this, a group called Harakat al-Nujaba, which is a Iraqi, Iranian sympathetic paramilitary organization, vows to continue its attacks even if the U.S. retaliates. So we have this situation now brewing where the U.S. is threatening an impending attack in response for its service members, and we got paramilitary groups in Iraq who aren't even necessarily Iranian saying that they're going to retaliate for that. So you can see now we have like a bit of a complicated powder keg situation going on here. And furthermore, the addition of Syria into all this doesn't really help the situation. And I'm sure to many Westerners and outside observers and folks coming into this story for the first time probably find very confusing, because there are a lot of factions and different interests at play that don't necessarily all get along at all times, and it leads to just a completely chaotic situation. So let's take a moment, I guess, to sort of break down a little more in depth the Syrian situation. So in Syria, as many know, now it's going to be about 15 years longer, but the main conflict has been taking on for about 14, 15 years. But the Syrian civil war, this has started as kind of an uprising between the people of Syria against the Bashar al-Assad regime in Damascus, but has since completely escalated and devolved into an all-out free-for-all by all kinds of vying factions in Syria. And because of the scale of the conflict, it over time has brought in Iraq, Jordan, and others, which is caused even more chaos, and certainly hasn't made the situation seem to have a viable solution in the foreseeable future. So one thing happening this week at the same time as all of this is going on, members of the YPJ and the Syrian Defense Forces have been conducting a massive operation against ISIS, specifically in the Al-Hol refugee camp. So far, I mean, I've heard differing reports of either several hundred to several dozen people reported or arrested, but I'm thinking the several hundred number is probably more accurate. And it seems to be a lot of escalation happening even in that. I'm pretty sure the operation, which is being called Humanity and Security, and is again led by the Syrian Defense Forces, was only supposed to take a few days to a week, and is now well past a week and ongoing, and it seems to have uncovered more and more each day and arrest more people. So there's a lot going on in Syria. You have these ISIS factions, and you have YPJ and the Syrian Defense Forces, the Bashar al-Assad regime. You have Turkiye, as we've discussed in the past, who conduct assaults and operations in the area. And then you have Iran and Russia and the United States. So it's an insanely complicated situation there, and I will certainly do my best to try to demystify that as much as I can. But you can see where the U.S. retaliating either in Iraq or Syria, there's a lot of potential pitfalls and things that could go wrong in doing so. Then in the northern Syrian city of Afrin, there has been an ongoing conflict and mass arrests happening there, but this time carried out by the Turkish occupation forces and their mercenaries. So while the Syrian Defense Forces are trying to combat ISIS in Al-Hol, Turkiye is arresting Syrian Defense Force members in Afrin. And then you have the United States, who sort of does their own thing entirely, the Russians, who are trying to support the Assad regime, and Turkiye, which for some reason likes to support the ISIS folks. It's still not entirely unclear as to why they do this, but that it's been a steady back and forth, and sort of even as over the weeks as we've covered the situation there, there's been one set of arrests and attacks, and then within a matter of days there will be the same the opposing side will do something similar. It'll go back and forth and exchange until it seems to be coming to a head. And in the midst of all this kind of chaos and mass arrests and threats of retaliation, we have an analyst from Hawar News, which with some interesting insight on the potential conflict, how it might escalate, and specifically Turkiye's relationship with Iran. So it would seem that while it, again, is very complicated and it's hard to tell who is on whose side, it seems pretty clear that
Turkiye interests, while not seemingly supportive of stability in the region, don't really seem to align with Iran's. Seems to be a lot of contradiction and conflict between the two. Particularly that Turkiye doesn't seem to be fond of the Bashar al-Assad regime, whereas Iran is certainly more favorable to it. And kind of my last little bit I'll throw in for now, Turkiye, which has been attempting to perhaps have some form of talks with the Bashar al-Assad government, has officially said no. It looks like those communications have broken down, and a diplomatic solution between Turkiye and the Assad regime seems unlikely at this stage. So we have set up a pretty destabilized and very chaotic situation. I certainly hope all Syrians and Iraqis are well in this time and are safe. It's definitely going to be a little crazy out there. So watch the news. Don't give in to the fear and the chaos. Be nice to each other out there. Alrighty. Well, thanks for joining you, fam. Sorry that we didn't get to cover a whole lot of parts of the world, but I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty central place for the next week or so in the world news. So now you got an inside scoop a little early. All right. Love you, fam. Bye.